Let me tell you a story. Not the kind you hear in the news. Not the kind people tweet about for a day and then forget. This one stays with you. It begins on a hot afternoon in Eastvale City, a place where glass towers reflect the sky and cars shine brighter than most people's futures. In the middle of downtown, tucked between a bank and champagne bar, stood Westbridge Motors, a luxury car dealership. You know the kind. Marble floors, whispered conversations, suits so sharp they could cut glass, $1 million machines parked like sculptures behind spotless windows. And that's where she walked in. A woman, young, maybe mid-20s, black, alone, and wearing a faded floral dress that had clearly seen better days. It hung gently just past her knees. Her sandals were worn. The leather bag on her shoulder looked soft from age and use. She walked in slowly, quietly, not unsure, but like someone had learned a long time ago that the world watches people like her very closely. And the laughter started before she even made it 10 steps inside. 2 men near the entrance, salesmen, leaned against a car like they were posing for a magazine. Slick back hair, expensive watches, the kind of grins that only grow when someone else is shrinking. The taller one, with a voice loud enough for the whole showroom to hear, called out, "Sweetheart, you lost? This isn't a thrift store." And just like that, the stage was set. The other man, shorter, heavier, with a smirk that could curdle milk, stepped forward. He didn't just look at her. He looked through her, like she wasn't real, like she was a joke. He reached down and tugged at the hem of her dress. Just a little. Just enough. Laughter. Not from everyone, but enough. A few people looked away. One man cleared his throat awkwardly. A woman whispered something to her partner, but no one said a word. No one stopped it. And that silence, that kind of silence, hurts more than noise ever could. The woman didn't flinch. Not really. She just pulled her dress back down, slow and steady, like she wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of rushing. Her cheeks were red. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't run. She just walked, step by step, across that glossy white floor that made her sandals sound too loud. She kept her eyes forward, past the laughter, past the smirks, past the eyes that judged and the ones that pretended not to see. She stopped in front of a black sedan near the center of the showroom. A beautiful car, sleek, quiet, powerful. Her hand reached out, just the tips of her fingers, gently touching the curve of its hood. And behind her, the voices began again. You think she's here to buy? Maybe she thinks there's a giveaway today. Maybe she's here to clean. The tall one twirled a pen in his fingers like it was a microphone, and with the arrogance of a man who thought the world belonged to him, he turned to the room and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new owner of the Welfare Queen Coupe." More laughter, less this time, some chuckles, some half-smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. Even cruelty has limits, but only if someone draws a line. She didn't move, not at first. Then she tightened her grip on her bag, held it like a shield, and that's when it happened. The strap slipped, just a little. The bag fell open, and a single photograph tumbled out, landing softly on the tile floor beside her. It was a small photo, slightly faded. A little girl, no more than 7, smiling wide with a missing front tooth, braids, dimples, the kind of smile that makes you feel like everything will be okay, even when it isn't. The shorter salesman saw it, stepped forward, and without a second's thought, without even looking down, he crushed it beneath the heel of his polished shoe, like it meant nothing, like she meant nothing. The sound wasn't loud, just a soft crack, but in her eyes, something broke. She bent down slowly, picked up the photo with shaking hands, tried to smooth the crease. Her lips moved, barely audible, but if you'd been close enough, you might have heard her whisper, "Never let them strip your dignity." It was something her father used to say, a reminder, a shield made of words. And on that cruel, sunlit afternoon, it wrapped around her like armor. She stood up, not fast, not dramatic, just steady, with her back straight, her jaw clenched, her eyes suddenly very, very clear. The air in the room shifted. No more laughter. No more jokes. Even the music from the overhead speakers seemed to fade. She looked different now. Not because anything had changed, but because people were finally starting to see her. One of the men tried again, reaching for a final jab. Even the janitor wouldn't wear that rag. The other added, "Cars here cost more than our whole neighborhood." Still, she didn't speak. Then the short one leaned in, voice low, almost daring her. "Go on," he said. "Show us those food stamps." For a second, it looked like she might fall. Her knees softened. Her eyes glistened. She looked down. But then she breathed in. She straightened. And she said, "You want to see what I carry?" Let's go back to that moment. The room had gone quiet. Not peaceful quiet, tense quiet. The kind that hums just under the skin. The kind you feel in your chest, like thunder you can't hear yet, but know is coming. She stood in front of a car that cost more than most people make in a year. Her dress was still wrinkled. Her bag still worn. But her voice had changed. "You want to see what I carry?" She asked it calmly. No yelling. No anger. Just quiet strength. And with that, she reached into her bag, the same one they'd mocked just a moment ago, and pulled out a black leather folder. It looked simple. Clean. No glitter. No drama. Just a silver logo pressed into the cover. She walked over to the same car the man had teased her for touching. She placed the folder gently on the hood, right where her fingertips had rested earlier. Now, let's pause here, because this was the moment, the turning point. This wasn't just a woman showing a folder. This was a woman reclaiming every step, every breath, every word they had tried to take from her. The men behind her shifted. The taller one raised an eyebrow, trying to laugh it off. "Cute," he said. "What is this? A fake lease from Google Docs." But his voice wavered, just a little, because they had seen that logo before. And now, they weren't so sure who they were talking to. The folder was from Grayson Holdings. Not a name you hear every day, unless you're in the business world. But if you are, you know it. Grayson Holdings owned almost every luxury car dealership in the state, including Westbridge Motors, the very showroom they were standing in. She opened the folder. Slowly. No rush. She let the silence stretch. Inside were documents. Stamped, signed, official. On every page, her name. "My name," she said clearly, "is Ariel Grayson." Her voice didn't shake. Not once. "And I'm not here to buy a car. I'm here to evaluate the performance of my employees. As of last month, I became the CEO of Grayson Holdings, which means this building, these cars, this entire business, it's mine." For a few seconds, no one moved. You could almost hear hearts drop. The smirks disappeared. The salesmen looked at each other, like maybe they'd just woken up from a bad dream and were hoping this wasn't real. It was very, very real. A manager appeared from the back, his face pale like milk. He rushed forward, stammering, "Ms. Grayson, ma'am, I didn't know you were visiting today. We weren't informed, or I would have." She didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on the two men who had humiliated her, who had laughed and touched and mocked and stomped on the only photograph she had left with someone she loved. "You mocked the woman who signs your paychecks," she said. "You touched me without my consent. You laughed at my clothes. You crushed something sacred under your feet." Her voice didn't rise. She didn't need it to. The power wasn't in volume. It was in truth. "You're both fired," she said. "Effective immediately." There was no ceremony, no raised voices, just finality. And then she pointed, not at them, but at the floor, at the photograph, still lying there, bent and smudged from the sole of a $400 shoe. "Pick it up," she said. They hesitated, but only for a moment, because in that moment, they realized who she was, not just in title, but in presence. And when someone like that tells you to pick something up, you don't argue. The taller one bent down first, his hands shaking now. He picked up the photo and held it out to her like an offering. She took it gently, slipped it back into her bag like it was made of glass. And for a moment, she just stood there, quiet again. Still, The storm had passed, but something heavier remained. The weight of what had happened. The weight of what she had to carry, not just that day, but every day before it. She didn't thank them. She didn't say another word. She simply adjusted her dress, lifted her chin, and turned toward the doors. And just like when she had first walked in, all eyes were on her. But this time no one laughed. No one smirked. No one dared look away. As she stepped out into the sunlight, it hit her like it had earlier, but it felt different now. Not harsh, not blinding, just warm. And as she stood there at the edge of the curb, she remembered something. Her sister's laughter. The way it used to echo in their little apartment. The way she used to dance in the hallway with no music, saying one day they'd both be rich and they'd own all the fancy cars on TV. Her sister had died before that dream came true. But Ariel, she made it. She made it all the way. And not just to the top of a company. Not just into boardrooms and executive titles. But through every cruel whisper, every stereotype, every closed door and stolen opportunity. She made it through all of that. And she never let them strip her dignity. You know, people talk about life-changing moments like they always come with music or some lightning bolt from the sky. But most of the time, they come quietly. They come while you're standing in a pair of old sandals, holding a photo bent by someone else's carelessness, under the same sunlight that once made you feel small. Ariel Grayson stood on the curb outside Westridge Motors, the same place that had chewed her up and tried to spit her out. But the moment she stepped through those doors again, not as a customer, not as a stranger, but as the owner, everything changed. Not just for her, but for everyone inside. Let's go back a little. Because stories like this don't just end with one big twist. They end with something even more powerful. Clarity. Inside, the showroom still buzzed, softly now. Not with confidence or arrogance, but with questions. The general manager stood frozen near the door. The two fired salesmen had retreated to the corner, their shoulders hunched, eyes lowered. And everyone else? They just watched. Because deep down, they knew they had witnessed something bigger than just a boss firing two employees. They had seen a woman rise, in real time, from everything they'd assumed about her. The faded dress, the worn sandals, the silence. None of it meant what they thought it did. Back inside, Ariel paused for one last look at the room. Not out of pride, not even out of anger, just to see it for what it truly was. The floor that had once gleamed like a stage now looked like a battlefield. The cars no longer sparkled with exclusivity, but with the realization that anyone, no matter what they wore, belonged. She turned to the manager, who was still fumbling for words. "You don't need to explain," she said gently. "What happened here today? Explain everything." The manager nodded, red-faced and silent. "I don't want an apology," she added. "I want a change." Because, see, Ariel wasn't just there to punish people. That's not what this was about. It was about truth, about the quiet, everyday ways people are made to feel small. The casual cruelty, the unchecked bias, the way dignity is stolen in fragments, through jokes, through stares, through silence, and the way you have to fight for it again and again just to keep it. Outside, a young woman, maybe in her early 20s, waited near the sidewalk. She had seen everything through the glass. Her clothes weren't expensive. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid. But her eyes were bright, full of something Ariel recognized immediately. Hope.